there, friends and strange people. I welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I'm apparently out of practice here. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening, where I talk about a board game, a top 10, some board game related topic, whatever happens to be on my mind at the time. Well, as promised, I went to Tokyo, Japan. I played some Japanese games. I played some American games that with Japanese themes. And I also went to the Tokyo Game Market. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. This won't be a particularly long episode. I'd always wanted to go to the Tokyo Games Market. I'd heard that it was, a great place to experience publishers from East Asia, and this was a great opportunity. So I'll tell you what I thought. Don't have a lot to show here, but I will give you some thoughts, what I liked less, and just overall rating of the experience. So Tokyo Game Market, I think there are two each year. There's one in the spring around Eurovision time, and there's one in the fall that's around now. It is held at the Matahari. Wait, it's not Matahari, but it sounds like Matahari. Mesa, Makuhari Mesas. There we go. It's funny that they use the term Mesa to describe the convention hall, which is sort of outside of Tokyo. In Tokyo, everything takes 2 hours to get to, so it's about 2 hours. It's actually fairly close to Tokyo Disneyland. So it's a convention center. It's not the biggest convention center, but it's pretty big. I mean, it was big enough to host this, and it wouldn't be. It's not as big, I don't think, as the Indianapolis Convention Center or the Essen Messe or any of the other big ones, but it's a pretty big place. And so I went, and I went having no expectations. So when I went, the first thing I noticed is that this is a convention that is attended by kind of regular people. Gen Con is attended by people in costumes, people who look like gamers, for whatever that, for better or worse, whatever that means. Often people in funny hats. Essen, is attended by a mix of families and gamers. This one was attended by what looked like just regular people who were there to see what was there. There were a few kind of gamer people who looked like they were in there to get everything, but for the most part, it just felt like a lot of people were going to the convention center because they'd heard it was something to see and went there. On the second day, I believe there were lots of families with children. Nobody was dressed up. In a costume. Everybody was wearing, either casual clothes or even, suits and ties. I think that might be a Japanese cultural thing. But yeah, the audience was more widespread than I was expecting. Second thing, and this may sound stupid, but Tokyo Game Market is 100% in Japanese. Their website has a bit of English. You can get there, I guess. I had to have someone in Japan help me buy the ticket because the website was essentially all in Japanese, and even when I used Google Translate, it only got me so far, to the point where I needed to create an account, and the account needed me to write my name in Japanese letters, and needed a Japanese phone number, and, then there was something weird about picking up the tickets at 7-Eleven. It's definitely, it is a convention for Japanese people. They welcome foreigners, but it is very Japanese, and if you don't have some Japanese knowledge, it will be a challenge to attend and a challenge to participate fully. And since I don't speak Japanese, I experience those challenges, so I can speak firsthand from that. Third, size. This is smaller than Essen or Gen Con. Substantially smaller. It's still pretty big. It took kind of the whole day to walk the exhibition hall. but it's the booths are often a table with a person with a sign behind it, and that person is usually the game designer and publisher and maybe handmade the copy. It is, and the whole hall is probably about a third the size of Gen Con or Essen, so much smaller. Also, um, the publishers there are mostly Japanese. There were a few Taiwanese and a few Korean, and All Play was there, which kind of made me happy, right? I'm glad they're doing well. They had a big booth, and I talked to Joe at All Play, and he said that they sold out of River Valley Glassworks. They brought lots of them, and they sold out in the first hour. So, good for them. But they were probably the only U.S. publisher that I saw, at least that I recognized. So, very East Asian market. And again, most of the representatives at these booths may not speak much English. In fact, it was kind of funny. I obviously stand out as a foreigner in Japan because I'm tall, fat, blue eyes, pale skin. I mean, I definitely look like a foreigner. Um, and so everybody, assumed that I would need English, and they assumed correctly. And, for the first day, that was often how I decided where I was going to stop, is if somebody spoke to me in English, okay, I'm able to engage with this person a lot better. There was one point where some guy said, "Hey, let's play a game." And I said, "Okay." I was walking by. He said, "Hey, let's play a game." I turned on over and I realized that that was the only phrase that he knew in English. And his friends started making fun of him because he had, summoned the obvious foreigner with his sole knowledge of English and then was unable to sort of pay that check. Um, so we had a laugh, but then I kind of continued on because there was no English available. There are lots and lots of anime themed games. Many of them are. Look, I am not a huge anime fan. There are a few animes that I enjoy. I like One Piece. I liked Demon Slayer, Hunter x Hunter. So Hero Academia. A few of them, but I don't like sort of that gross, hypersexualized anime. And there are a lot of games that seem to be leaning into that. Fortunately, they were all in Japanese anyway, so I wasn't going to pay much attention to them to begin with. But you would sort of see a whole lot of, anime style poster and then a bunch of Japanese. Um, to the extent going back to Japanese, many of the games have English rules, but not in the box. And even if there's an English version available, sometimes you have to jump through some hoops to find it. Many of the games I picked up are not even available. I mean, they don't even show up on Board Game Geek. I mean, these are small publishers for the most part that, are really on no one's radar. Now, they're trying to be, right? That's the point, right? They want to be the next Love Letter, um, which is a game that came from Japan. They want to be sort of a successful like Ubi Chikoya or Sashi and Sashi, some of those larger publishers that have just kind of made it. But they're just trying to do what they can, and for the most part, they're there to sell to Japanese people and haven't put a whole lot of thought into where we go from there. Uh, so let's talk about the big publishers that were there. Other than All Play, Sashi and Sashi had a huge booth, which showed lots of their games. I picked up a couple of them. I picked up Newsboys and 1 a.m. Jailbreak, kind of a card shedding game and a roll and write game in reverse retrospect order. Their booth was pretty big, pretty sophisticated. They could take credit cards. Most of the booths were cash only. Let's see, Ubichikoya had a big booth. They were showing off Sweetlands, which is on Kickstarter right now, but it wasn't available for sale. But they did have lots of their other big games. They had their Ostia game and its expansion were there, and a couple of others. I picked up one, something about fairies in the forest. Haven't tried it out yet, so who knows? But let's see. Jelly Bean Games had a big booth. They had actually one of the bigger booths. They had several demo tables running. I picked up a couple of their games. And what's it? The one with the submarine. Oink Games. Oink Games had a huge booth, and the first day the line was wrapped around it twice. They were selling all the games they were selling were in Japanese. The best one that looked like that I saw from them was something called Final Message, where you kind of are trying to point the killer with a little drawing, like you're the body that died, and you're trying to draw something to get to the killer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to try it because, again, it was in Japanese, and wasn't able to pick it up because all the cards were in Japanese. Well, I guess I could have picked it up, but I wouldn't have been able to play it. But for the most part, I mean, far and away, the biggest type of game sold at Tokyo Games Market was trick-taking games. There were so many small trick-taking games. I picked up a couple. There's a company, I forget even their name. There's a game called Bubblegum where you're trying to sort of win tricks. When you win tricks, you're blowing up this bubble, but if it gets to a certain number, I think 15, it pops, and you only get points for the things that are still active. If it pops, it clears off. So, and then another one about selling hot dogs and getting the plates. And they were actually a fun company because their designer is all Japanese and dealt with the Japanese customers, but his friend is all English and dealt with all the English customers and deals with the translation and make sure they're English. I mean, they're really trying to break into the market, um, clearly because they have put so much effort into making things accessible. Um, but lots of trick-taking games. Really, they're trying to be the next sort of big thing out of Japan, and I guess Japan is known for trick-taking, and it's great that they have that opportunity. Um, yeah, so those are just some thoughts. I picked up about 15 games, most of them very small. Um, some of them, some of them, there was one that I really wanted to buy, but it wasn't available. It was just there for demo. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to show up in. They said, come to our shop and pick it up in December, but that's not going to happen because I'm not in Japan. Um, so what did I like? I liked the small, quaint nature of most of the booths. They were small. It was one guy, maybe two, sitting at a table, and they had largely, and like I mentioned, they not only designed the game, they were probably using a handmade copy and trying to sell that off. So it was really a very personal experience to sort of get to know and see these smaller designers just at the start of their career and think, well, this is amazing. Oh, there was this one game about life in a Japanese school. I really wish I knew a publisher that could bring that over. It looked amazing. It was all in Japanese, although the designer is some professor from Osaka University, so and spoke English perfectly. Um, but it's just I really obvious. I think the game would really be a successful kind of quirky find if somebody could bring it over and translate it. Um, but I just loved that it was a very, I mean, you go to Essen or Gen Con and you might be able to meet the designer, but you're usually one of about 30 people waiting in line to talk to him and you'll get your game signed, take a picture, say I love your game. But the one-on-one time really is kind of a thing of the past in the U.S. and in Germany. But here, if you spoke Japanese or if the designer spoke English, you could really just sit down and meet this person, and they were very open. They'd tell you all about their life and what they're trying to do and why they love games, and it was very charming. I liked it wasn't as crowded as the rest of Tokyo or the other conventions. I mean, there were a lot of people there, but not as bad as a Gen Con, for example. They do sell early tickets on Saturday, so if you had like the list of all the games you knew were going to be hot, you could go in and buy them early. I didn't do that because I didn't know what was going to be hot. I didn't do any real research. I just kind of took it as it came, and because of that, it was a low pressure experience. And because of that, I really enjoyed it. What didn't I like? Well, you know, I, I hate to keep coming back to the Japanese thing, but I was not able to participate fully in the convention just because of the language barrier. And I wish there were a way to solve that. There is. It involves me learning Japanese, though, and that's that's a big ask for a convention. I'm definitely not going to be frequenting every year because it's expensive and far away. Well, it wasn't expensive to go in. I think the ticket was 9,000 yen, which is 30 bucks, 20, 30 bucks. So not a huge expense, but obviously going to Tokyo and staying there is. Um, but I wish, and I think if the game market wants this to become sort of the Japanese or Asian version of Gen Con or Essen, they'll need to invest a little bit more in the international infrastructure here, making the website more English friendly, including some English signage, and reminding the publishers that, look, if they want to sell to foreigners, that they're going to need to bring somebody who can speak English. Yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Let's see, what else didn't I like? Um, I wish there had been better, food options. There were, but they were kind of outside the convention hall, and then you had to go back in. And I wish the signage and sort of procedure for checking in had been more clear. That was very much play it by ear. I wish it were more credit card friendly because, over here we mostly just use credit cards, and the need to sort of deal with cash is fortunately in many cases a thing of the past. And it was kind of a hassle to have to keep going to the ATM every time I wanted to buy something. So I mean, but those are small complaints. Overall, I had a great time. It was a look into a different world. It was almost like traveling back in time to the Gen Cons of 40 years ago when they were small. To sort of you know new people trying to break through, and the excitement when you would stop and try and talk to somebody as they went through something in their very best English. They were just so excited about their games, and if you bought one, they were really excited that you were trying something they made. There was just this pride of ownership that kind of the mass-produced version that we have over here has been lost, and so there's maybe not as much polish and shine, but there's a lot of heart. Also, I always log my gameplays, but I've been unable to do so for some of these because they're just not available on Board Game Geek. I might have to add them myself, which is unfortunate. I hope these games will get more recognition. Anyway, overall, great experience. I would recommend going if you are in Tokyo anyway, or planning to be there. Probably not one that I would say go out of your way to go to unless you speak Japanese or are a big fan of Japanese games or really want the kind of quiet, quaint version or experience that you really can't have at a big game con in the US or in Europe. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Those are my thoughts. I'm back from my travels. We will be back to regular episodes of Wednesday Whimsy. We're coming back toward the end of the year now, and that means, of course, that we're going to be doing our top of the year for a lot of things. I'm excited to talk about that. I have a whole mess of games that arrived while I was gone, so I have to get on playing those as well. And anyway, that's what it's. We're going to leave it at that. Until next time, I'm going to wish you safe travels, and I hope to see you back next week on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.